Welcome, everybody. My name is Isaac Castellaz. He's Abeyu Amari Dukes. Together, we are 360 Collective. Peace, Dukes. How you doing, my good brother?
I'm doing good, man. How you been, brother?
Oh man, I'm just relaxing, man. Glad to be back with you. Haven't been with you online together in this space for a little while, and really excited to be here with you tonight, man, to talk about this seminal book, Ta-Nehisi
Yeah,
Coates' Between the World and Me. I know that you and I both love this book deeply. We've talked about it in the past, and it's a good frame for us to begin talking about race relations and the state of race relations in 2024. And we are really excited that there are going to be a lot of people with us tonight. I know that you may be joining us from different places. We encourage you to tell us where you're from, put it in the chat, introduce yourselves, and we hope that throughout the conversation that we will have, that you react, that you ask us questions. If you think that we're wrong about something or we've missed an insight, we want to hear from you in the chat so that we can react, so that we can learn from you, so that we can grow together, make meaning together, and leave this conversation, spend about an hour together tonight, leave this conversation smarter, wiser, more conscious than we were previous. I see Wanda is checking in. Greetings to you, Wanda. We're glad to have you back with us. If I'm not mistaken, Wanda's been in previous conversations with us.
oh,
So
yeah, always it. Where's Wanda at? Where's she located? What city you at, Wanda?
yeah, where you at, Wanda?
Hey, but before we even go even further, man, we lost one of our wonderful supporters. About a couple of how long ago was that? Isaac, when Paula passed away.
Oh, that was in January.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Paula
Yeah.
was a Panther member in the um, I want to say Philadelphia chapter.
Mhm.
But she played a pivotal role in the Philadelphia chapter, gave us a lot of insight on her role and more or less what it really meant to be a Panther during that time, man. And we really appreciate the opportunity she gave us to just gain some insight to welcome us into their chapter and those type of things. So we really really sad that she passed away a couple of months ago. So if anything else, I'd like to dedicate at least this one to her.
Right on, good brother. That's a great call, and yeah, she brought us into the fold, man. I mean, we went out to Philly on her invitation, and we facilitated a workshop with veteran members of the Black Panther Party. I mean, who are we to do something like that for them or with
Exactly.
them? That was a high
Exactly.
honor, definitely. Do you know that that was the first time that any members of the original Black Panther Party had set foot on campus or done anything official on campus since the 1970s?
No way.
Yeah,
No way.
yeah, that's what Paula told me when we were there, and we were part of
Not
that.
yeah. To bring them back and for them to that's crazy. That's
Hmm.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So with that said, we are going to, and I see Wanda says she's in Omaha. So thank you for
Okay.
joining us, Wanda, from Omaha. We're glad that you're with us, and we know that we'll pick up other listeners throughout the conversation tonight. So we'll check back in the comments to see who else is with us and see what other ideas or reactions may be there that we've missed. Because we want to bring listeners, we want to bring our viewers into the conversation. And if this is your first time tuning into a conversation with 360 Collective, Amari and I have been friends for many years, going on, gosh, what is it? Is it 30 years? About 30 years at
Close to
this
that.
point, almost.
Probably 20, 25 maybe. Yeah, come on, yeah. My
Okay.
oldest son is, my son is almost 30,
Yeah.
so probably he
Yeah.
was like 3 or 4 when he came. So when you probably met him, so
Yeah.
about 25, 26. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been a while, man.
Yeah, and so we've each spent portions of our careers as educators, counselors, school leaders, administrators, and so now we like to interact with people that are advocating for and working towards liberation in their own ways, whether that's racial liberation, social liberation, political liberation, or otherwise. We support and try to engage in all liberation movements and bring people together for conversations like the one we're going to have tonight. And we ourselves, as consultants, we help organizations and we help people and we help schools or teachers or administrators to develop and pursue justice-driven goals. So organizations that may need work improving their organizational climate or bringing people together. We are happy to do that with people. And so if something like that is of interest to you as you listen tonight, we host conversations like this for people or for people. We're very skilled facilitators in person and virtually. And so if anything that we do tonight should interest you to have a conversation with us, it's not even about the money. It's about us trying to help you make a difference in your own community. We work for free. We work to be paid when it's conducive, when it is appropriate. But we're happy to work with you in whatever it is you are doing. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this now, because we are trying to contribute to the cause of liberation in the ways that we can and lend our skill set to that struggle. So with that said, what do you think, Dukes? You think we ought to get started, man, or what?
Let's get started. I guess more or less. Also, I mean, I know we did the book previously, but I think on our end, I think that because we think it's such a powerful book that spoke at the time when it was written and kind of speaks to the time now, that we should. I guess we're gonna redo it. Do it again. I guess the other books that we're definitely gonna talk about later on. In our series of book discussions, but this one for us really hit us in so many different levels. So that's why I guess we want to revisit it.
Right on, right on. So as part of that conversation, there's a couple things that I'd like for us to raise with our viewers. That in any conversation about race, particularly in an organization, there are certain words whose definitions must be established from the very beginning of the conversation, even before getting into personal experiences or anything else that can be more sensitive in a conversation about race. So agreeing on definitions for the word race or for the word racism, for the word white, and what Glenn Singleton in his book, Courageous Conversations About Race, calls whiteism. So I want to call attention to the first definition there, race. Amari and I will be proceeding in our conversation about race with the understanding that this word means a socially constructed identity based on physical attributes, especially skin color. So we reject any notion that a person is born one way or another, more smart or less smart, more gifted or less gifted because of the color of their skin. There's no science to suggest that. There's no research to suggest that is the case. So we believe that nothing is wrong or right with a person because of the color of their skin. So we want to start with that word grounded in our conscious and in our conversation as we move forward. Anything that you wanted to call out here, Amari? Any reaction to these definitions? Anything you think that you'd like to discuss further?
Whiteism, the failure to recognize white as a dominating, privileged color, ignorance of the racialized experience of non-white people. So I think Coach will define something similar, right? In this in this book, but same like you said, these are some of the things that we just want to start off as out of these four terms, the known, those things that we don't want to debate about what they meaning, because if we left it up to not having any definition, anything, we could find ourselves getting off topic, baiting what race is or what racism is. We're just saying with some of these terms right here, these are where we're coming from. This is the foundation in which we're coming from. So if we're using these terms, it makes it easier for the conversation to flow. And if anybody have any questions, they always can go back to why we're using these words in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we will put these on our Facebook page. We'll put them on our website as well, so that you can have access to them. And again, whenever we have a conversation with anyone, we like to share resources with them. So this is a great book that we use in conversations about race with people. And so we want to pass this resource along to you. So along the same lines, there are a few things that Glenn Singleton says must be honored in any conversation about race. One is to stay engaged, meaning that you offer your whole self to the conversation, no checking out. This is especially important for white people like me who may feel uncomfortable talking about race or about white privilege, um, and what that means to me as a white person, which flows right into the next one about experiencing discomfort. The concept of race is not made to make sense. It is designed for to be a frustrating topic to talk about, to be a frustrating concept to navigate, because its whole purpose is to subjugate and divide. It isn't the concept of race isn't here to help us make sense of the world and be at peace with one another. The idea of race in the very first place is one that is designed to trip us up. In this conversation, we want to speak our truths. Amari and I have known each other for a long time. I have no doubt that he will speak his truth to me and me to him. We also want you listening to speak your truth to us. One of the things that can happen in a conversation about race is that by saying nothing, we sometimes unintentionally tend to signal agreement with someone as opposed to speaking out or confronting the statement or the misstatement that another person might make. Extremely important in a conversation about race that if you feel something in your heart, if you feel disrespected by something, you feel that what someone is saying is wrong, you must confront it in the moment in a constructive but truthful and assertive way, so that the person saying the thing, the person thinking the thing, can learn from you and grow with and from you as well. And then the last thing is just to expect and accept non-closure. We are not going to solve racism in this conversation, but with many conversations about race, conversations in groups, conversations with ourselves, constant self-critique and self-reflection, we can begin to erode racism. But we will not solve it in this one conversation, but many conversations over time lead to many actions over time, which then ultimately erodes the power of racism in our lives and in our world. So these are things that we want to leave you with as we start the conversation. We hope that these things help position you listening to have a conversation with us. Anything here that I'm missing, Dukes, that you want to
I think
call?
I think on both two things that experience discomfort. Sometimes, in order for us to grow, we got to make sure that we place ourselves in these situations, places that we don't know, things that we don't know, and be willing to experience those, whatever comes along with that. And that non-closure thing is very important too. And sometimes it's not so much of um, closing your thoughts right then and not believing, but when you leave that environment too, it's sometimes that you ever argue with anybody, and then
Mm-hmm.
later on you sit back and say, "Dang, they were right,"
Yeah, that
or
happens to me all the time.
because the emotion is out of the situation at that point. Now you can sit back and say, "Oh, I see where that person was trying to go with that," and
Mm,
now because I took some time away from the emotional aspect of it, maybe I can think more rational from away from it. I can sit back and say, "Okay, now I see." And
yeah.
sometimes if we close up so soon, we close up too fast, and sometimes it's okay to walk away to get back to the and get back to it to wherever it is. But sometimes make sure we don't close to the point where sometimes there's teaching and learning in those type of things that you want that aha moment. But if you don't want to experience, you don't want to be discomfortable, um, and you close yourself, we won't get to those spots, those places.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And actually, I see that Wanda mentioned in the comments that we also lost Brother Ed Poindexter, veteran member of the Black Panther Party, and also along those same lines, we lost Dr. Matulu Shakur as well
Mm-hmm.
last year.
That's true.
Yeah, and this the what's so wild about that, Amari, is that, as you know, we produced a short documentary for the Black Panther Party Film Festival, and in producing that, I got to meet some of the advocates fighting for Ed Poindexter's freedom, and to get inside his case and understand just how intense the repression of the Black Panther Party was in places like Omaha, which is where Brother Poindexter was from, and where he helped organize the Black Panther Party, was it was hard to believe. And even as much as I think that I study history, getting into the details of how Ed Poindexter was framed was a completely um, sad, depressing story, but the resilience of Ed Poindexter and all that he did, even from behind bars, unjustly in prison. I mean, Ed was a truly beautiful and magnificent person. And there are still several Black Panther Party members who are in prison. Kamal Siddiqui, in particular, is one. Veronza Bowers is another. Kenny Zulu Whitmore, and there are others who deserve to be free. So we have called for, and we continue to call for, the immediate release of all veteran Black Panthers still in prison, and all political prisoners in general. So I thank Wanda very much for bringing that up. So with that said, why don't we jump into the first part of the text that we will be talking a little bit about here, Dukes? And this is one that I know you feel very strongly about. So the book itself is written in the form of a letter from a father to a son discussing race relations in the United States generally.
Right.
So, but what did your parents teach you about race? How did this shape your growth from a child into adulthood? What are your general reactions, I guess, to how the book is structured, Coates' motivation for writing it, and then what was your experience with race growing up as a child?
I think well I think that I like this question, probably one of the most question of the I'm sorry. I like this question, probably the best of all of them probably we have, because it's like how it was written, the letter, the intimacy that he expressed in the letter made it understandable. Um so the letter drew so much. You think about even how James Baldwin wrote the letter to his nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the details of how he explained why the fear of what he experienced, or what it meant to be black or whiteness, those type of things. Um, one I think is a wonderful letter. What I don't think there was like a direct lesson that I was taught, more or less. I don't think it was like a direct lesson, like here's books here, here's books that there, or don't do this, don't do that. I think what it was surroundings around the house. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I grew up understanding, knowing that I was black, and that there was nothing wrong with my skin color. There's nothing wrong with um my facial features, those type of things. So I wasn't as it. I grew up knowing that just by waking up in the morning, seeing pictures of African Americans, or having books, those type of things around me. So just having a aesthetic aspect, a culture around me, I gained that type of love automatically. Um, so there was no, direct, like I said, there wasn't a direct lesson, but the lesson was around me and everything that we probably did around the household. But as it formed, what type of but also it allowed me, because of that, my mind was already open to learn more, to learn how to dig more, um, and so to have more of a conscious mind frame to understand things as they were coming. So, and on top of that, being around 87, 80, 88, hip hop also played a big role in that, because that's also when there were people were infusing, you know, um, speeches of Malcolm X, or whatnot, into hip hop, and so that also made it more appealing to also get the understanding of of the racial aspect of from that standpoint, whether it be Malcolm X speeches and those type of things. So, um, I think that just having that, artifacts around the house, hip hop, those type of things provided me a good backdrop of having an understanding of race.
Did you ever hear the word racism growing up?
Now, that's a good question. I don't think I did though. I did. I never think I did.
No.
Never. I don't think I did. I did. No. Nor is. I mean, I probably understood it. Um. Probably 10th, 11th grade. Maybe I may understood what really was, but um. You know how you don't know you poor if when you're happy, you don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. Not not
Yeah.
not out of ignorance. It's just that life was good. Life was great, and some of that life was great because I had a true understanding of who I was, as in knowing about from a historical standpoint, knowing who I was. So from there was a little bit of arrogance that I just knew it. So some things that maybe I knew could be coming, I didn't. I already knew how to handle some of those things just by reading or people telling me how to handle some things. So maybe I didn't see it as racism. Maybe I just seen it as um an everyday occurrence type thing. You know what I'm saying? So um but I don't remember it being stated racism or any of those things until probably I realized later, okay, that's what that was. So similar things where like where his book he talks about just being growing up. I do remember like from anecdotal standpoint, I do remember probably 10th grade, 11th grade, walking from the park. And so at the same time, you think about this is a high of the crack era. It was just 88, 87, high of the crack era. And that stop and frisking was humongous, right? But imagine just walking down the street and then just being pulled over, right? Walking down the street, being pulled over, walking down the street, telling to sit on the curb. And so I know, I'm not involved in anything like that. Don't even associate with that type of situation. It was just odd to be pulled over in that type of situation. So those things did start happening. Black boy. I mean, you realize that okay. You realize that. So you realize that you are black, but you realize that there is an assault on your body, as Coach would say, um, and you have limited resources to do anything about it.
Yeah, for me, as you know, I had parents who were fairly, I won't say progressive, but I'll say liberal, very liberal parents. And they were very careful to expose me to the cultures of other people different from me.
Mm-hmm.
And for which I am thankful. There was this attitude of, see, we're all just people, right? It was, we're all alike, and people come from different places and we look different, but we're all humans. There's just one race, the human race, right? It was a very harmonious way of thinking about other people and the world. I i didn't have any exposure to ideas of racism, or
Mm.
or was never taught that the world was a racist place at all. And um, the thing was, my race was never talked about. It was, they are they're black or they're Asian, but it was never so much, and you're white, you know. So it was almost like there was a, unintentionally, it was almost like I'm the standard and everyone else, they're different from you,
Right.
but they're just like you, right? Like they're just as good as you are, like we're all different. We have different shades, and you're from Italy and Ireland, and your ancestors are from Poland and everything like that, but it so I think it reinforced like the idea of whiteness as a standard. Or like one time you corrected me about space, where like neutral space is white space. There's no such thing as neutral space in America. Like there are black spaces in America, but if it's not explicitly a black space, by default it's a white space. So there
Mm-hmm.
was the way that my parents spoke to me about other people. I think it conditioned for me that I was normal and other people are different from me, but that doesn't mean they're not just as, that doesn't mean that I'm better than them. We're all equals, but they're different from me, sort of thing. Not we're different from each other.
I think it is that space of that mind frame too. Was like I think some people realize we ran into when we're in collegiate, we're in college together. Where like when you get a textbook, all right, when you get a textbook, who writes that textbook? And so
Mm-hmm.
if you want to pull back and say, well, who wrote it? Was it a black man or a white man, or what I'm saying? You automatically just think, well, if you wrote it and it's about mathematics or about whatever, you just automatically think white people wrote it, right? And so then
Right.
just imagine that all those people who all those black people who went to school for whatever mathematics, sociology, whatever, there's no outlet for them to write, because no matter what I mean, there's no way for them to. People don't think that they will write, because
Right.
I mean, if you just close your eyes, you just automatically think that's a white person wrote that textbook, or a white person does this, and so it
Mhm.
automatically, the mind frame, even though it's there's no malice in it, it automatically cuts off the scholarship of black people, brown people, whoever, from that level of scholarship. So we don't think it. We don't think they wrote it, unless it was like a black studies book or something like that. But those other books that we use as we getting our degrees, automatically always thought, well, the author of these texts, the authors of these, were just done by white people, and we took that as just the norm,
Mhm.
as the norm.
Mhm.
But it's, and like saying, same time, it's fine. I mean, we never thought about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We could talk about this one subject for forever, but why don't we jump into the? I know we have some clips, so why don't we listen to a clip?
Okay, let's go.
Okay, all right. Clip loading now. Okay, so this clip is the first clip about whiteness. It's from page 7, and we will give it a listen now.
Americans believe in the reality of race as a defined, indubitable feature of the natural world. Racism, the need to ascribe bone deep features to people and then humiliate, reduce, and destroy them, inevitably follows from this inalterable condition. In this way, racism is rendered as the innocent daughter of Mother Nature, and one is left to deplore the Middle Passage or the Trail of Tears the way one deplores an earthquake, a tornado, or any other phenomenon that can be cast as beyond the handiwork of men. But race is the child of racism, not the father. Difference in hue and hair is old, but the belief in the preeminence of hue and hair, the notion that these factors can correctly organize a society, and that they signify deeper attributes which are indelible. This is the new idea at the heart of these new people who have been brought up hopelessly, tragically, deceitfully to believe that they are white. The elevation of the belief in being white was not achieved through wine tastings and ice cream socials, but rather through the pillaging of life, liberty, labor, and land, through the flaying of backs, the chaining of limbs, the strangling of dissidents, the destruction of families, the rape of mothers, the sale of children, and various other acts meant first and foremost to deny you and me the right to secure and govern our own bodies. These new people are like us, a modern invention. But unlike us, their new name has no real meaning divorced from the machinery of criminal power. The new people were something else before they were white: Catholic, Corsican, Welsh, Mennonite, Jewish. And if all our national hopes have any fulfillment, then they will have to be something else again. Perhaps they will truly become American and create a nobler basis for their myths. Americans deify democracy in a way that allows for a dim awareness that they have, from time to time, stood in defiance of their God. But democracy is a forgiving God, and America's heresies, torture, theft, enslavement, are so common among individuals and nations that none can declare themselves immune.
Hmm. Wow. So it's so much. So I mean, so you appreciate, like he's telling his son the foundation of this nation, right? And so, although we're talking about whiteness, well, let's start what he says. Racism, it comes before race. And as we said before, this is a construct, right? There's nothing. Um, it's a social construct. It's a test. It's a just to see what happens. So somebody at one point had to come up with this idea, and so typically we have a mind frame of thought that race came first. He's saying racism had to come first because somebody in doing this had to create a hierarchy. Somebody had to be better. Somebody had to be worse. And so in doing that, like he said before, because those things were already present. You already had somebody with red hair and somebody with black hair, somebody with curly hair, or somebody with a wide nose, somebody with a bigger lips. Those things are already present. But at what point did it come down to the point where we judge those things and put value on those things that made it that made it mean something? And so if that was the case, racism, whoever came up with the construct must understand that the racism had to come first, the judgment had to come first, and putting those things in that type of perspective. So I think that's the thing that sticks out more. I think a lot about the book more than anything else. Understanding where the important racism had came first. The second part about it is defining what whiteness is. Like is in order to be white or to believe that you're white, as he states, in America, there's things had to happen. And it wasn't just coming over here on boats. It wasn't fighting for in the American Revolution. There were things that allowed whiteness to be, and that's on the backs of African slaves, and those things are never talked about. This on also talking about, it's on the blacks of soldiers fighting in World War I, World War II, and allowing those people to get loans, and not being able to, other people can't get those loans. So whiteness is based on those type of things too. It's on the backs of suppressing women, even now suppressing women with their bodies. Whiteness, especially now we're talking about just say white men, it's based on those things, and not to make judgment on it. Let's be able to define what it is. I think what he's saying is we could take a step back. Let's just define what it is first, and this is what whiteness is. Now later on we can talk about whether it's right or wrong, but we cannot step over the fact that this is what whiteness means. And for some, it's like people think it's just innate. It's something, and it's not. And like he talks about, it's human. It's human. It's more human than anything else. That what America's done. America has what it's done to Africans and black and brown people isn't human. It has nothing to do with their God ability. God for the word I was going to say was God. God. Exactly.
Mhm.
But do you think, Isaac? Do you think that presenting that framework and how we defines it, we find it to be hard for people to grasp the idea? So like I said, not judging, no judgment on it, but this is defined for what it is.
Absolutely, it's difficult for me and my people to comprehend that concept, because it's taken as you're telling me I can't be proud of who I am. And when I say, like, I'm proud to be white, I'm thinking about the pasties that my grandmother made me. I'm thinking about the Christmas traditions, the Polish sausage that we eat at Easter. I'm thinking about all of the experiences that I've grown up with my white family that I think make my culture unique.
Mm-hmm.
What I fail to grasp is that tradition, that Easter tradition, has nothing to do with whiteness and everything to do with my grandmother coming from Poland, right? So saying that I'm proud to be part Polish or part Italian is quite a bit different than saying that I'm proud to be white. Because as Coates says so eloquently, he doesn't in his writing articulate the impact that whiteness has had on Black people. He says, first and foremost, this concept has demonized, has dehumanized you who think you are white. Right. That you are the first victim of whiteness. And I feel bad for you who do not get to experience the full condition of humanity because of your whiteness. I think that is an absolutely genius technique for him to articulate whiteness in that way, because so often even well-meaning white people such as myself tend to think about whiteness as the impact it has on other people, without understanding that in fact whiteness deprives me on a psychological level from becoming fully human, right? So Coates articulates that. And so I think when he says even people who think themselves to be white, or even in some of the things we put on our 360 Facebook page, we'll say like so-called white people, right? But I really think that's where we need to go with the term white is we need to start going back to the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X, so-called white people, right? I mean, it really is that. So I do think that it is difficult for me and other white people to wrap our heads around. Absolutely. Now, I do see Wanda says that she was born into a single black struggling mother and a white father who was a business owner who my mother worked for. I was a product of opportunity, not love. 2 children were born with that connection, myself and a younger brother. I was hidden from my father's environment. My mother relocated to another state when I was nearly 6 years of age. I was targeted as a misfit. Life was quite difficult for me back in the day when being biracial was far and few in between. However, one life is all I ultimately experienced and all I know. Still I rise.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, and think that I think that that's a conversation also I think needs to be had, that those people that sometimes will say caught in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
that struggle, and how people need to navigate that too. I mean, sometimes we have to. I think that needs to be taken up too. And sometimes when we have discussions, we forget about that. Even Coach that got some flack for not for just having this book directed towards his son, or just directed towards men. And there were some women saying the same thing, but like, I'm saying, what about us? But we have similar problems, or we have problems, and why can't we? Why isn't he adjusted? Why isn't he speaking on that? But do you think it's possible? I mean, do you think he should have included talk about black women, or is it okay just to take a subculture or something and just have that conversation, or have a conversation? Isaac.
I think I don't think that it's appropriate for me to answer that question. I think black men and women grapple with racism in ways that are appropriate to them, and it's my job to listen, acknowledge, and learn from those grapplings or any insight that you honor me with, whether it's Coates or whether it's anybody else who gifts me their insight, right? So I think it's incredibly complex. I think we have to be careful. I will say I think we have to be careful not to get into the idea or a feeling of like scarcity, that we can't read and learn and appreciate Coach's perspective, and also read, listen, and learn from the perspectives of black women writers who may want to articulate their own unique experience with race or as a black woman, right? I think we can do all of it, right, without having to choose one or the other. I mean, that's
right. Sometimes,
yeah. What do you think, bro?
I mean, I say you're right, because now you're saying that you want to sit back. Well, was that idea a plant? Was the idea a situation where somebody's put that out there just to cause division? Because plainly, you can sit back and say, well, it's the intimacy that the book has from father to son, and maybe it could be totally different if it was he had daughters, right? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But the same talk, the same discussion has been when we're talking about the murders or the police brutality, black men versus black women. You know what I'm saying? There has been an unequal level of attention granted when maybe a black woman has been assaulted by the cops versus when a black man has been assaulted. So I think some of that is coming from there, but at the same time, like you said, there's enough time, there's enough books that people can read and discuss. It just so happened that this book was done so well, written so well, and was so personable, and had the intimacy was there that gained so much attention. It doesn't mean that there's not books similarly written to women or just written to the family that discusses their plight also.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump into this next clip. if you're
Word.
okay with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This clip is one that we call Fear. Let's give it a listen.
And I am afraid. I feel the fear most acutely whenever you leave me. But I was afraid long before you, and in this I was unoriginal. When I was your age, the only people I knew were black, and all of them were powerfully, adamantly, dangerously afraid. I had seen this fear all my young life, though I had not always recognized it as such. It was always right in front of me. The fear was there in the extravagant boys of my neighborhood, in their large rings and medallions, their big puffy coats and full-length fur-collared leathers, which was their armor against their world. I saw it in their customs of war. I heard the fear in the first music I ever knew, the music that pumped from boom boxes full of grand boast and bluster. I saw it in the girls, in their loud laughter, in their gilded bamboo earrings that announced their names thrice over. And I saw it in their brutal language and hard gaze, how they would cut you with their eyes and destroy you with their words for the sin of playing too much. I felt the fear in the visits to my Nana's home in Philadelphia. You never knew her. I barely knew her. But what I remember is her hard manner, her rough voice. And I knew that my father's father was dead, and that my Uncle Oscar was dead, and that my Uncle David was dead, and that each of these instances was unnatural. And I saw it in my own father, who loves you, who counsels you, who slipped me money to care for you. My father was so very afraid. I felt it in the sting of his black leather belt, which he applied with more anxiety than anger. My father who beat me as if someone might steal me away, because that is exactly what was happening all around us. All I know is the violence rose from the fear like smoke from a fire, and I cannot say whether that violence, even administered in fear and love, sounded the alarm or choked us at the exit. What I know is that fathers who slammed their teenage boys for sass would then release them to streets where their boys employed and were subject to the same justice. And I knew mothers who belted their girls, but the belt could not save these girls from drug dealers twice their age. Everyone had lost a child, somehow, to the streets, to jail, to drugs, to guns. It was said that these lost girls were sweet as honey and would not hurt a fly. It was said that these lost boys had just received a GED and had begun to turn their lives around. And now they were gone, and their legacy was a great fear.
Wow. That passage too. I mean, I think that in this passage he's gonna talk about the difference between one to the other, and not realizing that these things are done. I mean, he talks about all his surroundings. There's fear. He realized that the black experience, the foundation is around fear. Waking up, going outside. He realizing that even the shell, the armor of his friends or of the boys around him are is just a coat or just a shield to protect them. The girls' anger and the way that they talk to each other just protect themselves from the rough world. The parents and the way that they're disciplining the child whether they did something right or wrong was just a cloak, a shield to protect them from this rough world. But just imagine, he said more or less, just imagine everything that's going on is built around fear, and fear just takes away the ability to think and roam. And so for his whole life, growing adolescence life is you see nothing but fear. He also turns into the fact that listen, I'm passing on the same fear onto you, and I wish I didn't have to. Because you think about when you have children, you think about living. It's not you don't want to live in fear. You don't want to live being scared of whatever. But all around you, everybody is fearful. He also speaks on how even the civil rights movements, or even the people that are leaders, whatever, their reaction to things are fearful, out of fear, not being proactive or anything like that, but is done out of fear. And so just that nakedness, also about the nakedness of black children and black people, this nakedness not being protected. And just how that translates to just your psyche and stuff like that. So I mean, he's just dealing with that was just powerful. Just think about, dang it, a lot of things that we do is not out of the freedom of just thinking and roaming, but I got to think about the next turn and what that means. And so I thought about that, just hearing that, then think about you in Chicago, Isaac, and then realizing that, how so we tell our kids that don't join gangs and how bad gangs are, right? But in some of these neighborhoods, is that the right thing to tell them? You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes these gangs are their protection, right? And so, how do we tell like these kids not to be protected?
Yeah, I along that line, a good friend of mine here who's a black man, he carries a gun with him everywhere he goes. I mean, he's come over to my house with his gun, and I tell him all the time, "Why do you carry a gun? Like, what's with that? That, but just by carrying a gun, you're more likely to die, right? Just by having a gun, statistically." And I mean, his response to me is, "You don't get to tell me how I protect my body. Live as first a black man and then a black man in Chicago. I mean, there's like, as a white male, my experience is different day to day than his, and so
right.
So things like that I have to be very careful in the way that I judge him, because my privilege gets in the way, So
Yeah.
As well-meaning as I think I am, my whiteness is still something that I have to acknowledge and be conscious of. Like I'm in no position to tell him not to carry a gun for any number of reasons,
Or even and sometimes just for that, to make it the conversation even broader. Sometimes we even tell our kids not to fight in school, not realizing what those repercussions look like also. Right. And though in the contradiction of stick up for yourself though, but then you telling me to fight, or you know what I'm saying? So it's just there. I mean, I think we tell our kids one thing and then it's they're not understanding. I think he speaks about that also, where he I don't know if it's in one of the clips where he says, well, his dad is mad at him for fighting in school, or you tell your kid to run back into using the fight, run back into you better go fight them, whatever. But then when that same anger, that same energy goes into to his teacher or whatever, then he's disciplined. So it's an imbalance of how do you protect yourself, or how do you just live? But then society's saying one thing, but then also that there's a different set of rules for just men and just black people growing up. We're just living, what I'm saying? Just different set of rules. And so that's the hard part, where it's like, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I think that someone's talking about the corporal punishment. And so then like he talks also, he says, I'm going to either I'm going to beat you or the cops are.
Yeah.
And so I want to beat this discipline out of you. I want you to be disciplined in order to live in America. But then the problem is that the America that we want to live in. You know what I'm saying? That's not our America. You tell me I have to be beat just to have a better understanding of how to survive in America.
Yeah.
And then that's what he says. He says at the very end, the boy just got the GED. The boy just got his GED. And so people say those types of things. They, even though he could have been doing A, B, C, or D, but then he was changing. He was going for the better, and still, whether it was the homies on the corner that he got hurt by, or whether it was a police officer.
Right.
No matter what, there's never that level of safety.
You fight back. You're wrong. You fight. You comply. You're wrong still. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the same institution that blames you, no matter what. Other times it's different forces. So as a white male, like I relate to what you're saying from a very intellectual place, from things that I've read, not so much things that I've experienced. And that goes back even to Glenn Singleton in his book. White people, we do tend to form understanding or relate through a more intellectual point of view, because our own experience with race is so very limited, right? And it's so very comfortable. And so the point I'm about to make comes directly from something that I read about and that I experienced in some training that I received from a woman named Joy DeGroy, who wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Disorder. And she articulated that so much of the upbringing of Black children is rooted in the institution of slavery, as in white slave master observes Black boy growing up and remarks to the child's mother, "Oh, that son of yours is sure growing up there, isn't he? He's nice and strong, isn't he? Look at him." And as a protection mechanism, mom says, "Well, I don't know. He doesn't this and he's that and he doesn't follow directions and this, that, and the third." And this was a way to protect the child.
Oh man, right. Oh my gosh.
From a white slave master. And so the beatings and everything else, all of these things get traced back to Black enslavement, chattel slavery in this country. So today, when white mother and Black mother are at the park playing with their kids, and the white mother goes on and on about, "Oh, well, my child is this and this and this," Joy DeGroy says the Black mother may not in fact match that compliment. She may say, "Oh, well, my son, he doesn't listen to this, he's so bad," and this, that, and the third. And that gets passed along from one generation to another. Where did that Black mother hear someone else talk about their child in that way? Well, it was her mother. Where did she hear other women talk about their children that way? So Joy DeGroy articulates that some of the way that Black parents still discipline their children can be tied directly back to some of the traditions that were instituted in chattel slavery. Again, completely intellectual relationship with this piece of information. It comes from Post-Traumatic Slave Disorder. I strongly, of course, recommend that book. And so I want to move into the next because we're talking a little bit about criminal justice, and Robert made a great point. So let's check out this quote. I'm going to read. This is something. I'm going to take this down for a second. I'm going to take down Robert's point so that we can look at this passage from page 79 in Between the World and Me, and then I'm going to come back again to Robert's point here. So Coates says the police reflect America and all of its will and fear, and whatever we might make of this country's criminal justice policy, it cannot be said that it was imposed by a repressed minority. Do you agree? And how does the U.S. justice system compare to that of other nations? So I'll put back up Robert's comment here because he's talking about the balance between like criminal justice and what the universal research says about corporal punishment, and then the need to raise children in correctly and so forth. So Robert, I think you're tapping into something I think really insightful there. Let's see what Wanda's got this to say. She says, "I was forced to fight back or endure punishment from my mother. I learned how to run first." Track star, real talk. So there you have it. And then this is Leon. Welcome, Leon. Leon tracks a lot of our posts and everything on our page. So it's great, Leon, to have you with us. Welcome to the program. We hope you're enjoying. So he says, but can Black America afford to eliminate violence from its psyche? In many ways, we are forged and defined by the violence used in attempts to subordinate us. So what do you think about that, Amari? You have any thoughts, Amari, on what?
Well,
but I think that, I mean, keep in mind his earlier quote that this goes into his earlier quote when he's talking about what whiteness is. Whiteness is the oppression of black people. That's that, and nothing else. I mean, to paraphrase, that's what he's saying. That's what whiteness is. And if the justice system is just an extension of whiteness, what can you expect more than, if anything else? It's just an extension of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing what it's supposed to be. It's doing what whiteness is. If whiteness is if whiteness is exploiting people, and justice system is an extension of whiteness, then the justice system is doing what whiteness has told us to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's also there's an important juxtaposition here that needs to be made, which is that America is the most violent place on earth. And we can define violence any way you want. The number of people in prison for violent crime, the United States has the largest prison population in the entire world. And I'm not talking about number of people only. I'm talking about the number of imprisoned people per capita or like per population. It's over right. Like 700 for every 100,000, where the next largest population is somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 something for every 100,000. So we have more guns and weapons than anybody on the face of the earth. We spend more money than the rest of the world combined on military power. We have military bases strewn all over the place. The world's number of military bases don't add up to the number of U.S. military bases in the world. So I think it's not my place to answer Leon's question. However, I think that to talk about abolishing violence in this country doesn't start with Black America. I think it starts with white America, frankly, and then there's another conversation that can happen, among Black people in this country. But I think we have to acknowledge that violence is whiteness is violence. Whiteness perpetuates violence, and that's played out in the way that we spend our money in this country, the way that we treat one another, the way that we shoot one another, right? So I want to say that. Well, what's your reaction to that there, Dukes?
Well, I think it's the way that in the form of capitalism, the way that this world had expanded. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, I mean, in our minds, where we're taught, there were nobody here on this land. I mean, in the Americas, but they were. And so what happened? What had to happen in order to go from, New England to all the way to California?
Right.
They had to take the land from somebody. Right. And so even whether it was treaties being done or fighting, they took the land by force. Mm-hmm. They also took these certain people to help work these lands by force. All right. So from that standpoint, it's just the foundation of the country to be violent, and also was out of fear. So at the same time, as you were saying before, whiteness, the ability of white people to be human. Some part about that is that it's for white people to address that fear, because out of I can tell you what African Americans would want is that what Black people would want is, I mean, we believe in how the Constitution is written. We believe in those words, right? And so, and we think that we hope, I mean, how it's written, we totally believe that everybody can live in this country, with being protected by those words. Mm-hmm. It just seems that white people think that those words are just for them, and they're fearful of, if we give it to anybody else, I'm gonna lose out on. So let me get guns to protect. Let me move to wherever I want to go to protect. Keep in mind, so when people talk about the Union, is that protecting a certain way of life. So yeah, man. I mean, I think that violence is just here. It's not so much to be taken away from America, because that's just what America is.
Let's jump into the next couple clips. I know we're going on 8 o'clock now, so what do you think? Maybe 15,
Oh,
15 more minutes or
yeah,
so?
yeah. We could do. We could do. I mean, is there one that we could just do one more if you need to? I don't know. Is the one that hits you more as you want to go talk about?
Well, let's see. We've got the one on clips, and then we've got the last one, the world and me. I mean, the obviously as a we're educators, so the we I know we have a
Of
lot to say on the one
schools.
about schools, but wherever you want to go, my good brother, which one?
Hey, let's go with schools. Let's go with
Okay, all right,
schools.
sounds good then. Let's give this clip a listen then.
Yes, yes, sir.
The streets were not my only problem. If the streets shackled my right leg, the schools shackled my left. Fail to comprehend the streets and you gave up your body now. But fail to comprehend the schools and you gave up your body later. I suffered at the hands of both, but I resent the schools more. There was nothing sanctified about the laws of the streets. The laws were amoral and practical. But the laws of the schools were aimed at something distant and vague. What did it mean to, as our elders told us, grow up and be somebody? And what precisely did this have to do with an education rendered as rote discipline? To be educated in my Baltimore mostly meant always packing an extra number 2 pencil and working quietly. Educated children walked in single file on the right side of the hallway, raised their hands to use the lavatory, and carried the lavatory pass when en route. Educated children never offered excuses, certainly not childhood itself. The world had no time for the childhoods of black boys and girls. How could the schools? Algebra, biology, and English were not subjects so much as opportunities to better discipline the body, to practice writing between the lines, copying the directions legibly, memorizing theorems extracted from the world they were created to represent. I sensed the schools were hiding something, drugging us with false morality so that we would not see, so that we did not ask. Why for us and only us is the other side of free will and free spirits and assault upon our bodies? This is not a hyperbolic concern. When our elders presented school to us, they did not present it as a place of high learning, but as a means of escape from death and penal warehousing. Fully 60% of all young black men who drop out of high school will go to jail. This should disgrace the country, but it does not. And while I couldn't crunch the numbers or plumb the history back then, I sensed that the fear that marked West Baltimore could not be explained by the schools. Schools did not reveal truths, they concealed them. Perhaps they must be burned away so that the heart of this thing might be known. Our teachers urged us towards the example of freedom marchers, freedom riders, and freedom summers, and it seemed that the month could not pass without a series of films dedicated to the glories of being beaten on camera. The black people in these films seemed to love the worst things in life. Love the dogs that rent their children apart, the tear gas that clawed at their lungs, the fire hoses that tore off their clothes and tumbled them into the streets. They seemed to love the men who raped them, the women who cursed them, love the children who spat on them, the terrorists that bombed them. Why are they showing this to us? Why were only our heroes nonviolent? I speak not of the morality of nonviolence, but of the sense that blacks are in special need of this morality. I judged them against the country I knew, which had acquired the land through murder and tamed it under slavery. Against the country whose armies fanned out across the world to extend their dominion. The world, the real one, was civilization secured and ruled by savage means. How could the schools valorize men and women whose values society actively scorned?
Am I going? Oh, I like that clip. Just because it exposes the lies. I think that's the hard part is that we're told one thing, and if you do A, B, C, and D, it should get you this. And sometimes these things are never. Sometimes it's just not. I think that this is a lies. I think what it is just a lies that are told, and we believe it, and then we pass on the same lies, and then our children believe it, and then these dreams never come to fruition. And that could just be seen by neighborhoods looking the same 20, 30, 40 years from now. Would they look the same way they did beforehand? Little growth, you know what I'm saying? Same things, but they're not producing what they said they would produce. And so if the school was supposed to do A, B, C, and D, why didn't they do it? And why they did it. So I don't know if you ever been in, I know you've been in school. You ever seen a accelerated classroom? You see accelerated classrooms, and those are just not right. And you ever know the racial makeup of those classrooms?
Absolutely.
And you right, but then ever knows the freedom those kids have to think,
Right.
right? Sometimes they can sit on desk, right? They can sit on desk and think and just have a free will conversation with the teacher about whatever to bring out thought, right? To bring out thought, and so these kids can just think better, right? And that's what school should be, where they sitting here. You think about, you see some of the movies, the kids are just sitting thinking, having a good time, and not constrained by whatever. But then the other classrooms, the classroom where there's a lot of African American people, or whatever, it's so controlled. Get out of line, or you talk, talk out of line. It's discipline, discipline, discipline. Why? Because if you don't do this, you're going to, you're not. If you don't do this, you're not going to make it. You're not going to be anything. And these other kids, these other people, get a chance to take school for what it is, the chance to think and grow and develop minds. But 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 how we're told about going to school, or how important school is, it totally takes the freedom of education away, right? So, and then it becomes more of a chore. It's not free. It's not free of thought. It becomes more of a chore. I think that's what he's saying is like that's the problem. And so that also goes into the title of the book, Between the World and Me. There's something different here. There's something totally different over there. What are they doing in that classroom where they got beakers and they're really doing experiments, right? To learn. They have the freedom to make mistakes. But if I make a mistake, you know what I'm saying? It's not judged, it's not viewed the same way. And so imagine that being your life. Not having that protection. And then that same protection is not there when it's looking totally different. He talks about it being naked, the nakedness, right? The nakedness of not having whatever, not having that protection. So if those honor students have that, also in a larger society, there's the loans. There are loans for housing loans to protect them to elevate. There's the police department is there to protect them. So you have all those things for protection to elevation, but the police department is looking at something totally different when you talk about African Americans, those type of things. So it's a difference of of the world. And so the title of the book comes from there. The juxtaposition, just judging one side in that between the world and me. I'm seeing so much more that's not there that I want to experience. I think I have the right to experience as an American. I have the right to experience these things. And why is it that those people that think they're white only get a chance to experience those things?
Yeah. So, with that in mind, you started, I think, to touch on this a little bit. This is one of the last couple questions that we had developed together. While most of the book confronts the racist reality of the dream, Coates also explores feelings of joy and love. Why do you think he does this? So, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that even though there's a constant struggle, there's a constant fight. I think that some part about his life is beautiful still.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think you got to believe in the beauty of the struggle. There's things to do that's good to have. He speaks on meeting his child's mother and what that love is, and the struggles of being in love, and the joy of being in love. He wants his son to experience that too, because that makes life worth living. Finding someone that you love, that you're willing to love, to give love to, and hopefully receive back, is just part of life, right? It's a good thing about life. He speaks about going to Howard, attending the Mecca, and finally being surrounded by people, beautiful black people from all different aspects of life. He talks about those people that are trying to get you hooked up in the Ponzi scheme, to I'm gonna say people who are like really going to getting the master's degree in business. It's everything is there, but still it's all beautiful, right? But it's being safe. Because keep in mind earlier in the book, he's talking about that the fear of everything. But now being going to the Mecca, which was Howard University, being in a safe place to think, to roam, and to, like he says before, and to love. Just having that, and that's very important for him to be. He also speaks on. He says, listen, his Mecca might not be his Mecca was Howard, but he hopes and wishes his son has a Mecca also. He talks about. He says my blackness is going to be different from your blackness, just like his blackness is different from his father's blackness. So experience of being black is going to be totally different in these different generations. He also wishes that even though Mecca would be Howard for him, and keep in mind, like he says, I hope you realize Mecca is Howard for you too. But find that Mecca. Find that so you know what that Mecca is, and so that you can, if you need to, you always gravitate back to it, or you can reminisce about the joy of having that place where majority, at least everything was just safe and calm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the thing that I would add that I took away from the book and reading it is also he wants to affirm for his son that love, family, the things that he Coates experienced as a child were good, and that he in turn loves his family, his father, his mother, the people in Baltimore that he grew up with, for better or worse, right? That he always experienced in those relationships love, and that his child, that any child, his particular child, the natural state of humanity is to be free, and you are free. It's the world that's attacking you, but not because you are wrong, but because you are beautiful, right? It's because of their whiteness. It is because of the dream. It is not because of you, right? Like, you are loved. I love you. Your family loves you. Your ancestors love you. It is not you. It is the world, right? And so that's what I love so much about it, is that it isn't so much that there's a fight for freedom. There's a fight from interruption. Like, the natural state of humankind is to be free. There are people who seek to interrupt that, right? And so what is experienced in America among people of color are interruptions in freedom, right? But the natural state of any human being is to be free. Whiteness interrupts that. It is the wrong thing is whiteness, right? And so that's why I think he's very careful to talk about the joy and love that he experienced, and that he's passing that along to his child. And then here, Leon's got a comment here. What do you think about what Leon's saying there, Amar?
I think that's just it. I mean, what's the point without it? I mean, when I say that, that's the point. I mean, you fight, but still, it's like, what's the point? Without it, there's no reason to. But then also, like you said before in the beginning, you said even earlier he talked about growing up in Baltimore. Like you say, he loved that also. Right. Even you might find it dysfunctional, whatever, but he loved that also. And you can find a love in that, but also you have an understanding of there's forces outside of. He calls it like destroyers. The destroyers that's doing whatever it can to make that time or that place in Baltimore that way. It's so you can love it. You love it, all of it. You love the music. You love how people love how people respond to things. And it's not all bad. It's just like you said, those interruptions that make it hard, and then make people harder. Hard towards life, hard towards whatever. But still, the foundation of it is joy. And like, it's like just saying, no matter where you are, you see 5-year-olds play. They don't have that the way of the world on them yet. They just want to laugh. They just want to laugh and run around.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's there. Is at what point? At what point does it change? At what point? And sometimes, like you said, it's those outside forces of whiteness that makes it. For some people, is the outside forces that you realize, okay, the school system thinks I'm this way. I can't walk freely down the street. Like we said before, I don't know if this is on air or not, of I had to fight the brothers in the corner and
Mhm.
fight the police. I got to fight the misconceptions of the school system, not thinking that I can do A, B, C, and D, or controlling my body. And there's the social system that's saying I can't go past a certain level. You know what I'm saying? So it's those things. Like, I mean, it's extra weight for no reason.
Yeah. All right. Last question for you here, Amari. What
Okay,
feelings are you left with at the end of the book? Hope, despair, something else?
guys, I think that I read it quite. I probably read it once every 2 years. The feelings I'm left with. Well, it's one of those questions that was like why was the book written? Was it for a historical standpoint? What was it for a psychological standpoint? Was it just the intimacy from father to son, those type of things? And there's a switch always into why. And so every time you read it, could be something totally different. Like you said, I could read it from a historical standpoint. I could read it from being educated and just trying to critique it. Um, and sometimes that could be based on what you're going with or where you are, what type of setting you're dealing with. Um, I am left with the feeling that I'm left with is still, I mean, probably hope. If I could call hope, under that feeling of hope, not hopelessness, but hope, because I realized that. I mean, although he considered himself not a activist, but to realize that there's good writing out there that can evoke an emotion out of somebody, out of me at least. I guess I'm speaking for
Mm.
myself. That there's hope in that emotion. It has garnered us to do some level of activism out of it, as in we want to hold these discussions, if nothing for ourselves, but to maybe with other people too. You know what I'm saying? So out of that is that it's hopeful,
Mm.
because we, like I saw, I mean, we did it twice. We done it twice. So
Yeah.
what about you?
I guess for me, I leave the book with I guess a deep sense of love and also awe as well, because he talks all the time not about wanting to destroy the dream, which, because we're up against time, we won't explore the concept too much, except to say that by the dream, just read that as the American dream, right? He articulates not that we must do away with the idea of dreaming, but we must acknowledge that there are many dreams, right? There is not one American body, there are bodies. There's not one dream,
Mm,
there are dreams. So the fact that he's passing along as much knowledge as he is to his son and sharing it with the rest of us, to me, is a deep sense of love. I'm appreciative to be able to read it, and learn from it and enjoy it myself. But then also awe that he himself sees some way through, despite everything that our country falls short of and has done. He still sees some way through, and so that creates for me a heightened obligation, as well, to continue to work as much as I can, or in the ways that I can, for the betterment of and liberation of people in whatever way that may be. So I guess that's how I'd leave. I do leave reading the book. Um, but yeah, my good brother, that's about all the time that we
yeah,
have.
that's it.
It's been a
That's
day.
it.
It's been a
That's
great
it. I guess we
conversation
could
as
talk about.
always, man.
Yeah, I guess that we could leave it on the next time we could talk about, are you gonna vote next year? So
Hey, listen,
we can have
yeah,
that conversation.
that's another
We can
conversation,
talk about
right?
that next time. Yes, indeed, yes, indeed. I mean, yeah, yes, indeed. Because we believe in the system, we believe in America. I think you got to, somebody participate in all of it. So it's time to have the
Yeah,
discussion too.
yeah. So we appreciate everyone for hanging with us and contributing their insights to the conversation. Wanda's been with us, Cody's been with us, Leon's been with us, a few other friends have been with us. If you don't follow our page on Facebook, definitely go ahead and do that, so you can stay up on the things that we're doing. You can follow our posts, react to them. We have other conversations in store. We will be promoting those on our page. We do this for free. We're not asking anybody for money. We want to share knowledge with you. We want to gain knowledge from you. And these forums are a good way for us to do that. So we hope that you stick with us, that you come back next time. And just come back next time and do the knowledge with us.
No doubt, no doubt. I told you, I'm with you on that. Let's do that.
All right, my good brother. Real powerful people.
Yeah, powerful people, man. I appreciate it, man. I love seeing you, man.